Well, it's time to find out what's been going on in Edmonton's real estate market for the month of November. So we had a record of no snow in Edmonton, and that is kind of weird. And why do I bring that up in a real estate market stats presentation? Well, because the weather does usually impact the real estate market. Now, it is November. Typically at the end of the year, we typically see a slowdown. I say typical because the last few years have been far from typical. However, we've seen everything normalize in this last year, and I think that the stats are going to show you the proof that is in the pudding in terms of what's been going on in Edmonton's real estate market, how we are always been affordable because we don't see a huge increase in equity over time in terms of, I bought a house 1 or 2 years ago expecting to make a lot of money from it. No, you're gonna have to wait. It's a buy and hold game here in Edmonton, and that is also why it's affordable, because our incremental increases adjust very slightly year over year. And next month, when I take a look at the entire year of Edmonton's real estate market stats, I can show you what overall we've seen in the last 12 months for 2023. So if we take a look at the new listings that came on the market in November, we did see a decrease from October to November by just over 17%. Now, if you take a look at how many new listings we've had year to date compared to last year's year to date, we've definitely had more listings. Now, that market stat doesn't make sense a whole lot because we've had a very low inventory level in terms of having choices for buyers to buy, and sellers are not typically in a seller's market because even though the inventory is low, the demand hasn't been as high. So that market stat's kind of confusing when you see that we've had more new listings this year than last year, because we did see quite an influx, but last year, because we had such a huge influx at the beginning and quite the slowdown at the end, kind of was not accurate in terms of understanding the fluidity of what the new listings are. This year, it was a more consistent game in real estate. So though we saw more listings, we also didn't see as many sales as we did last year. However, if you look at the market stats, again, for year to date for all of Edmonton's housing market, we saw an increase of 34.6% in sales year to date from January until November. So that's interesting. That's quite a bit more sales than last year. But again, that doesn't really make sense when you look at the actual real estate market, because if you are a buyer, you've been trying to buy a home or you have bought a home this year, you know that some of the areas have had high demand and you still see multiple offers. Other ones, the houses just sit on the market. So it really goes to show you that we can't just look at the market stats as a whole and make a generalization, because when you're looking at buying a single family home, a townhouse, a duplex, a condo, all those impact. Now, these market stats are from the Edmonton Real Estate Board that cover all of the inventory, from apartment style condos all the way to multi-million-dollar houses. So that's why this average is just an average. Now, if you take a look at the sales from October to November, we did go down slightly in sales, and that again is normal. My guess in December is that we'll probably be very similar to November, if not a little bit lower, for the number of sales. December is typically one of the most slowest times of year. We see a lot of deals actually fall apart. We've seen that happen in the new build world that I've talked to with my new build colleagues, and we also see that with the resale market. December is kind of a weird month. There's a lot of builders trying to get those last minute sales in for the year end. You've got people who are motivated to sell because they want to get that house sold before Christmas. However, you're also seeing buyers be hesitant because of end of year. Should they just wait till next year? There's a lot of that. So November is just kind of moving into that, and because we had no snow, it was a lot easier to show and look at houses. Now, the darkness here in Edmonton has changed when you can look at houses, because anything after 5 p.m. it is pitch black, so you're not going to see the house and the yard the way that you need to be seeing it before purchasing. So in terms of the sales, I was interested to see the market stats came out and it said $2.5 million was the highest detached home that was sold in November. Now I looked that up, it's in Parkview. It's actually one of these great 5-level, split-level homes, very unique, new, more modern. However, on November 30th, there was actually a house that sold for $2.695, actually also in Parkview. And that was on November 30th, so it didn't show up on these market stats because they pulled them out right before. It's interesting to see that both of those high rollers were in the West End neighborhood of Parkview. Now, if we take a look at the average days on market, now this is again average days, so all inventory detached homes, single family homes. Last year we were at 51 days average, this year 45 days based in November. So slightly quicker in terms of sales, but again, if you see a house that has been on the market for a long time, we did still see sellers want to sell their home for a lot more than what they purchased it for, and in 2022 we saw a lot more of that adjustment delay because the first half of the year people were getting what they wanted, and then the last half they weren't. We still saw some of that this year. People were still kind of hesitant, but people are starting to adjust. Sellers are starting to understand that it's not just a seller's market or a buyer's market. I really believe we're more in a balanced market because neither party, in my opinion, has a leveraged point. Buyers don't have a whole lot of inventory to choose from, and sellers don't have a whole lot of buyers to choose from, so that typically puts you in a more balanced market, and I think that's a better place to be instead of one having more leverage than the other. Now, if we take a look at the average price of detached homes in Edmonton for November, month over month, we only went down slightly by just less than 1%, and then year over year, we went up by just 1%. So this is the average increase equity growth that I see. It's a very small 1 to 2, maybe 2 to 3% in terms of the equity growth. This is the detached homes. These are single family homes with either front attached garages or detached garages. The average is 467. What does that mean? If you're looking at buying an average home and you want to spend 400, you're not going to get what we call the average home. The average home in Edmonton would be a 2-story, 1,800 to 2,000 square feet. The year built probably in the maybe it's 15 to 20 years is kind of what you're going to see in that price point. If you want anything newer homes are going to be averaging at least $100,000 higher than what you're seeing for that average. And then it depends too if you're looking at a bungalow, which is that 1-story home with a basement with a garage in the back, you'll be able to find decent properties there too. So it's all dependent on the location, the year, the condition of the home. 467 is going to still get you a pretty decent home, but if you're looking, I've talked to a lot of people who wanted to spend under 400,000. You have to understand you may be looking either at a newer attached home, like a townhouse, or you're looking at an older home that needs more work, or maybe it has a lot more bones work to be done, which is like roof or furnace, that kind of stuff. But in terms of what you're going to get for your money as a buyer, if you have a budget of 450 to 500, you're probably going to be pretty happy. If you have more of the newer side that you want to spend, you'll probably want 550 as your average. Now, if you're a seller, what does that mean for your value of your home? These market stats mean that your house is still gaining equity. It's still strong. We're not seeing a massive decline in the real estate market. I know it's been a very slow slog this year. There's anticipation in 2024 that the market is going to pick up because the interest rates, as high as they've gone this year, they've started to plateau, and there's a suggestion that we may go down in interest rate. Now, when I say that, don't get too excited. It's not like we're going to go down 1 to 4%. We're looking at probably 0.5% to 1% conservatively in like the next year. Now, don't hold me to that because I don't have a crystal ball. But when we see the interest rates kind of drop, people will be more incentivized to buy. So as sellers, your equity will continue to grow in that direction. Buyers are starting to have gotten used to the interest rates, and so we have seen people normalize and buy regardless of the interest rates. They're obviously buying within their price points. So if your home is in a higher price point, it's definitely going to take longer to sell. If your home is in that $300,000 to $500,000 price point, that house is going to move quickly. Your value will grow. Your value over $700,000 in Edmonton. Now, not every buyer, most buyers in that price point aren't as affected by the interest rate increases. However, they are impacted by what choices they have to buy and the speed. They don't have to move as quickly, the demand is not as high, and so they can take their time to make that decision on which home they're going to really want to buy. So November was eventful or not eventful. I actually think that it was pretty consistent, which is what the theme of Edmonton is like the affordable, consistent equity. For the month of December, I do anticipate a slowdown, and in January, February, I anticipate we're going to start picking up probably near the end of January, February is what I've noticed over the years. We'll see if I'm right or wrong.